All right, that's kind of the good news out of Major League Soccer. What about the bad news, Herc? Atlanta United, they've parted ways with manager Gonzalo Pineda this after Atlanta lost 3-2 against Charlotte over the weekend. Rob Valentino, the assistant coach, is going to take over in an interim basis. Atlanta just one win in their last 11 games under Pineda. That leaves them 13th right now in the Eastern Conference. Garth Lagerwey, who's in charge of the team there, also saying in his press conference that the Giacomakis to Cruz Azul rumors, or talks indeed, are very real. So Herc, with Gonzalo Pineda gone, who is the next head coach on the MLS hot seat?
Oh, listen, there could be a lot here, right? Let me go a little.
And you can't say Carlos Bocanegra because I think he's next on the hot seat in Atlanta.
he may as well be.
Did you hear the press conference?
I did. Garth was non-committal about Carlos being involved in the next head coaching search, so that's never a good thing for your future. Let me think a little outside the box here. It'd be very easy, and there are a lot of candidates here, and probably even more, let's be honest, who should be on the hot seat. But I'm going to go with Frank Lopez. Now, let me tell you why I'm going to go with Frank Lopez. It's not even about Frank Lopez. Frank, he's a very good steward, very good soldier of the club. He's been coach, assistant coach. He's been a commentator. He's a good soldier for the Chicago Fire, institutional guy, and he will be there if he is let go, if and when, because nobody is forever. He will still have a place in the Chicago Fire. It's George Hayes. Now, he's a sporting director. If you've not heard of him, he's a sporting director for Chicago Fire. Let me read you something that Joe Mansueto, who's the owner of Chicago Fire and also the chairman of Chicago Fire, what he said when, listen to this, Seb, he extended George Hayes when he gave him a contract extension last year. He says, our fans deserve to support a team that is that is a consistent contender for trophies. Our fans deserve to support a team that is a consistent contender for trophies. He said this last year after giving him a contract extension. Heights joined in December 2019. His responsibilities include the first team, picks the first team, the Chicago Fire 2 team, and the Fire Academy. This season, the Chicago Fire are 14th, 14th in their conference. This is their conference. Last year, they were 13th. 2022, they were 12th. 2021, they were 12th. 2020, when he joined, they were 11th. Right after he joined, they were 11th. They're consistent, all right. They're consistently bad. So Frank Lopez is the guy who's on the hot seat by name, but it really should be George Hayes. And Mansueto, the owner here, a lot of times these owners go underwater. They go behind the scenes. They're never seen. They're never held accountable. This is one of those ownership groups that should be held accountable. A team like the Chicago Fire, who once were great in this league, back to the Cuauhtemoc Blanco, back to the Kalen Carr, back to the Sean Johnson years. Those teams, the Mike McGee, those great Chicago Fire teams of the past are no more. They are an afterthought in this league. And what's worse is it's not for a lack of trying. They actually tried to spend. They just don't know what to do. So Frank Lopez is on the hot seat, but it goes much further than that.
Yeah, that's a weird thing is Mansueto spends the money in Chicago as far as owners go. Like, he's poured a lot of money into that roster. It's Heights. It's the other guy under him, Peltzer. Yes. They've both been there since 2019. They've both been part of that effort to spend a lot of money. They got very little to show for it. They spent big on Kuipers out of Belgium. He's got 5 goals, but he's got a goal in each of his last 2 games, but basically had 3 coming into this week. That hadn't been a big hit. Obviously, Shaqiri's a pretty massive bust as well. 3 wins in 17 games played so far for the Chicago Fire. You're going Chicago. I'm going New England Revolution and Caleb Porter, which I know people are going to think I'm crazy here. 1, because they won over the weekend, and 2, because he was hired just 6 months ago. But sometimes, Herc, you kind of know right away that things are pretty bad, right? So we all saw in the CONCACAF Champions Cup what happened against Club America, right? 9-2 on aggregate, a pretty big humiliation at home. You remember right around that time they also played Inter Miami and lost 4-1 at home in front of a big crowd. There's a laundry list, Herc, of teams in MLS that have put up 3 or more goals against the New England Revolution. DC United, Philly, the aforementioned Inter Miami, New York Red Bulls, Atlanta United. That's half the Eastern Conference that is putting up huge numbers against the New England Revolution. And I'm just talking about how bad they're playing, Herc. I haven't even mentioned what's happening in and around the dressing room. You remember a couple weeks ago after a game, Caleb Porter was asked about Dave Romney, one of his defenders, and he basically freaked out at the journalist, then threw the player under the bus. And then a couple weeks later, they lost pretty badly to the Philadelphia Union. And after the game, there were reports of multiple altercations involving Porter and folks in that dressing room. So the results are bad on the field, right? They've got 3 wins in 14. I know they've got the fewest points in Major League Soccer, haven't played as many games as everybody else, but still, fewest points in MLS tells you something. But all of this smoke, Herc, that's coming out of this dressing room about off-field stuff so early in somebody's tenure makes me think something is wrong there in New England. Usually, Caleb Porter burns through a place after he's won a title. Here in New England, I don't know if they're going to get to that title before he burns through the place.
I think you're spot on everything you just said. I will add one of the major problems with Caleb Porter is he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room in any room he walks into. And I saw the interview. I've heard the tapes. I've read the reports, how condescending he can be, how he's thrown his players under the bus. Listen, if I'm Cardinalfo, who's pulling the strings right there, Bruce Arena, now Caleb Porter, I would be worried. This is something that needs to be turned around and turned around quick, or it could fester, it could turn sour really quickly. I think Caleb Porter is out of his depth on this one, and you're absolutely right. I can't add anything else to what you've just said.
How much do the Crafts care? Right? That's the question. How much do the Crafts care? One of those reports was that Jonathan Kraft was looking for Caleb Porter after the game, trying to track him down. We'll see what happens to Porter in his first year still in charge of the New England Revolution.